us in the room and online. It's cabinet meeting this evening. We've got a reasonably full agenda and lots of things on there that make me smile because there's lots of positive things moving forward. I've got apologies from Councillor Taylor. I'm also aware that Councillor Sanderson is running late. He's caught in traffic. So I would suggest that as we move through the agenda, if you are willing, Cabinet, can I suggest that after I've done minutes in interest, could we drop the Saltry Neighbourhood Plan back down to item 4 and bring the finance, could we bring the corporate performance report up the agenda? Because that way then we can continue to make progress whilst Councillor Sanderson arrives. Does that find favour? Yeah, I've got nods, including the people who've got to report. So that's great. Thank you. In which case, then we have the minutes of our last meeting held on in fact, of two meetings, the one held on the 18th of July and the minutes of the meeting from the 24th of August. Are there any comments or corrections that I need to take at this stage? No, in which case I'm looking for everybody's approval that you are happy that I sign them as a true record of the meeting. Yeah, I've got lots of nods. Thank you. So if you'll bear with me just a moment, I will print these just so that we have done that. Thank you very much. Lovely, thank you. Item 2 is members' interests. Are there any interests that members need to declare at this stage? No. Okay. So moving swiftly on to the new item 3, which will take as the corporate performance report Q1. Councillor Ferguson, over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've never been this high on the agenda, so this is interesting for me. Thank you. So we presented the quarterly performance report, which, as I'm sure you will have seen, is the first report with the new targets, the targets that this administration set rather than the ones that we inherited from the previous administration, and also the first quarterly report in which we've put our own print on it by updating the way we've presented data before the previous lots of work went into the previous reports, but those things over time, things change and things get more complicated. And I think it was time to have a complete refresh. So Dan Buckeridge and his team have put an incredible amount of work into presenting this data in a much more interesting and accessible way. And the thing I like most is we have time histories now, so we can see if there's seasonal or cyclic variations of performance indicators, which is really important for some of them, because sometimes some indicators might be amber in part of the year but end up being green by the end. And also we have a narrative from senior leadership team for most of the objectives as well. So I think it's a great improvement. There was lots of discussion at the ONS meeting about the format, and there were some really good suggestions, I think, to improve it even further, which we've taken on board. We said at the start this is a work in progress, and we're happy to update it. But I mean, I think everybody agreed that we've come a very long way, and I found it a lot easier to read. So I think the overall performance is excellent. 3 kind of ambers that I noted, which are perhaps causes for concern, is PL2, which is number of one leisure facilities admissions, which is still higher than it was a year ago, but is lower than target as well. And I think one of the questions from ONS from Councillor Pickering was asking us to give the reason for that. I mean, I'm not an expert in this, and I think it's a competitive marketplace in a cost of living crisis. But I've asked Councillor Taylor to write to the panel to give a full explanation. I think it's also worth noticing you can see now that we've got time histories that variance is a thing, and sometimes we can be low and get higher as well. But we're predicting to be lower than our target by the end, but that is a concern and something that we should keep an eye on, which is the point of having this report. PL3 and PL4, which is a number of residents enabled to live safely at home and prevented from requiring care or prolonged stay in hospital due to disabled facilities grant, and the average time in weeks required to do the practical work for those grants, both of which are worryingly low. But I talked about this at full council in answer to a question, and I think that is mainly due to an issue with places for people who are the largest provider of our housing, which has now been, I think, resolved after some really high-level interventions. We've taken it really seriously as well, but that's in my portfolio area, so we take those things very seriously, and we'll be monitoring them. In terms of good news, also in my portfolio area, PL5 and PL6. So one of the I do this report every quarter, obviously, and one of the embarrassing things for me is that the average number of days to process new claims for housing benefit and council tax support, and the same PL6, which is the same thing, but for changes of circumstances, have always been amber as long as I've been in this council. And I asked Katie Kelly, who leads the Revs and Bens team, to really address that issue. And for the first time, those are in the green. And having spoken to Katie on Friday, we're expecting even better results next quarter. So that's really good news and a demonstration of our commitment to helping people in crisis, I think. And the other, now that Councillor Sanderson's arrived, a bit late, he can get his pat on the back as well. So PL 12, 13, 14 and 15, when we inherited this council, the planning backlog was, there was lots of ambers, lots of reds. Councillor Sanderson took quite a lot of flack, I think, at full council. All those indicators are now green. I think that's a really decent performance and one we should celebrate. Obviously, there's still more work to do. We're not going to rest on our laurels, but yeah, well done for doing that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ferguson. I told you this evening there were lots of things to smile about. I'll open the floor to comments and questions. Councillor Sanderson, welcome. We've slipped your item slightly further down the agenda to give you breathing space. No, we know that, and we understand why. Are there any comments or questions that councillors would like to raise? Councillor Davenport-Ray.
First, I'd just like to shine some light on a department that I think doesn't get sort of unsung heroes of our council. In page 190 of your report packet, talks about outcome 6, lowering our carbon emissions. And the facilities team are concluding their review of emissions. And so far, they think we'll have a 30% reduction in electricity and 22% reduction in gas against our baseline. So that's over 500 tons of carbon. They've been doing a lot of work in this area, and it's a real success story. And more information on that will be coming to scrutiny. But I also had a question about the one program in the report that's a red status, the Longhurst contract, the properties in Warboys. I wonder if we might just have a quick update on that. I'm not quite sure who I'm asking that one.
I think the portfolio holder might be better informed than me for that.
Councillor Wakeford, is this you or is it Oliver Morley? You can fight.
So I am the portfolio holder. I think I saw Mr. Morley motioning. So why don't I kindly defer it if that's okay?
So, Councillor, as you'll be aware, within the Corporate Plan is a strong commitment to delivering against housing need. I think we've always recognised within the Longhurst project that is quite challenging. It's using a range of small, generally, sites of land to try and address the well documented issues we have in terms of housing availability. So significant work has taken place in terms of reviewing an application for the Warboys site. It is a challenging site. Very constructive engagement has taken place at both a planning level and a development level with Longhurst. An application has been submitted. There's been some challenge in relation to that. And a lot of work has gone on with the community to recognise those challenges and try to mitigate those. Channels of communication remain open, however, and we're hopeful that we should see an application resubmitted that best reflects some of those challenges and feedback from the community. So that Warboys site is very much the first step in what is anticipated to be a sort of programme of development. But whilst there are delays, we remain optimistic that it'll come to a fruitful conclusion.
Thank you, Mr. Morley. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Pitt?
Thank you. Just to say, I think this is a significant improvement to what we've got in front of us now. And I mean, for me, just for my own portfolio, I feel that the things that we're all discussing in public meetings is the tool that I can use between meetings to actually run my own portfolio. So yeah, so hats off to everyone involved.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Then if I may, from the chair, can I also commend this report? We were very keen to have a clear line of sight so that we could be open and transparent about what was working well, what was proving challenging. I know that from conversations we've had with staff find this a very important and useful tool, and Councillor Pitt, very useful for us too in the administration, looking at our own portfolios and our overall performance. So long may this continue, but I particularly want to recognise those parts of our workforce who've been highlighted for praise for their particular contributions. And it is really gratifying to see the two that have been giving us particular concern about they've remained amber or ambers and reds now finally turning green. That takes a lot of staff commitment to achieve that, and some of that is against things which are not always entirely within their control. So that's very gratifying to see, and I would like to put on record our thanks to everybody who works very hard every day of the week to ensure that this authority's performance is strong and continues to improve. But we're also open and transparent about the fact that sometimes things are quite difficult, and we're constantly looking to address those challenges in day-to-day delivery. So thank you. And Councillor Ferguson, the place on the agenda doesn't represent the importance. Please understand that. Equally, anybody who comes last, it's not less important, but it's really nice to have a report that we can be really positive about in terms of its outcomes. So I think, therefore, I am looking to receive that report, and I'm just checking whether I'm looking for a vote for it. Cabinet's considered it and commented, and therefore, and also to look at the prudent, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. No wonder it says about Treasury, and I'm thinking that's strange because it's the wrong report. Bear with me a moment. This is the joys of a changed agenda and working live online. Let me just pull up the right one. Cabinet is invited to consider and comment on progress and performance during Q1 and look at the attached report. So we've done that. We're not looking for a vote, but we are obviously looking to record those thanks. Thank you very much, Councillor Ferguson and other colleagues who've contributed. Can we move then to back to item 3 on the agenda? Councillor Sanderson, are you quite happy then that we are moving on to the Saltree Neighbourhood Plan? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for moving around the agenda briefly there. So pleased to announce that we're examining another neighbourhood plan, this time for Saltree, and we're being asked, the recommendation is that we act upon the examiner's report to accept the recommendation modifications and progress to the referendum for this neighbourhood plan. I think Saltree Parish Council have done a really good job on this, very thorough, as you can see from the appendices, and it was certainly well received by scrutiny. And I know that Councillor Martin, as local member, also highlighted that fact, and I do agree with him. There were some modifications, as I've highlighted. Councillor Gledo, as chair, also mentioned the fact the conservation statement hadn't been produced. But the answer to that was that the neighbourhood plan policies do use the landscape and townscape supplementary planning documents, and they'll help to inform planning decisions and guide development proposals. There were some issues with contacting landowners, and some sites were put forward, but it wasn't possible because, of course, we couldn't contact those owners to confirm whether those sites could be used potentially for development. But I think it's a very good set of proposals here, another neighbourhood plan. I hope that we see many more, but I'm happy to propose this and take any questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sanderson. Can I have a seconder just for the thank you, Councillor Ferguson, and then any questions or comments, please? Councillor Ferguson.
Just to say that it's nice to see an almost constant stream of these coming through at the moment, isn't it? We seem to have one every cabinet meeting. I seem to spend most of my life at parish council meetings. I have 9 of my own. Plus, I visited Yaxley on Councillor Howell's invitation last week. And quite often we hear residents addressing parish council saying, how can we influence the future of our villages and the development around it? And the answer is always, get a neighbourhood plan done as well. It's a lot of work and takes a lot of commitment from the community, but I think it's very, very worth it as well. And so it's excellent to see another really engaged community producing an excellent neighbourhood plan.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. I suppose that perhaps I should have declared an interest in that I went to talk to this particular parish right at the beginning of their journey as a town councillor who just completed a neighbourhood plan. So I am aware that this has been a long journey with a lot of time and commitment from this community, and I'm particularly pleased to see it reaching this stage. Are there any other comments before we proceed to a vote?
Just to say, Chair, the referendum date is proposed to be Thursday, the 9th of November. Probably not the best time of year for a referendum, but obviously this is due to the timetable. So I hope as many residents will participate in that and vote in favour of it. And if majority do so, then we'll obviously take that to full council, and hopefully council will agree to make the neighbourhood plan.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Well, I hope that that's the case too. Can I have a show of hands then that we're happy to agree to act upon the examiner's report and progress this to referendum? Thank you, and we'd like to wish them the very best of luck in doing so. Can we move on then to the next item on tonight's agenda, having done a slight rejig? So it's the finance performance report, which I was trying to get the actions for that agreed in the wrong slot. Karen Sutton, thank you very much. I think you and Councillor Mickelberg, between you, are going to take us through this item.
So I will allow the subject matter expert to deliver the report. I will then cover off some of the comments made from overview and scrutiny, and then invite comments from the chair or via the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I'm presenting tonight the Q1 finance reports, which are our actual financial activity for the first quarter of the year, plus forecast to the end of the year. You may note that the reports are a slightly different format to what was presented in last financial year. That's partly because we are now showing you what the actual activity year to date is. And it's all part of, we're trying to give greater clarity to the organisation's finances. So if you can see what's actually already happened in the year, you're able then to assess what we've got left to achieve in the rest of the year, and you know, make your own views on whether that is achievable or not, or actually perhaps we're being a little bit too prudent. But again, it gives you greater visibility of what we're doing. We've also shown you now income and expenditure. In the past, we've only ever shown you net expenditure, but by breaking out where we're getting funding or income and the costs of doing that, you can again see the relationship between those two things. And so if we have a funding cut, how is that impacting our costs going forward? Equally, if we're showing a big increase in funded activity, have we fully reflected that to our costs, or have we just taken it all straight to an upside down net expenditure? So hopefully you will find that helpful, and if you have any questions on it, or indeed if you have any further requests for clarity, then please feed them back to us. The actual figures, we are showing a significant underspend in year. Our receipts on our bank balances, our interest receipts are significantly higher than we expected, and we're forecasting that those will be 1.25 million higher than we had in budget. We have put aside, in line with our corporate plan and our wish to reward staff, we've put aside $750,000 of that into a reserve, and we're currently in discussions with the various employee representation groups as to the best way of distributing that. But it does mean that we are showing an underspend for the year of 0.56 million. Our capital expenditure has picked up. So obviously, the previous thought I was discussing was our revenue budget going across to our capital budget. Our capital expenditure has picked up, particularly in relation to the Markets Towns programme and the associated projects around that. You'll be aware that last financial year we had a huge carry forward on capital because projects had been delayed because of COVID and then getting works back up to speed. We are still predicting to underspend on our capital works in year. However, we are very, very conscious of our funding use by dates, and we're making sure that we're using our funding. No, we are still predicting to spend all the capital so that we can utilise all that funding, but we're making sure that we're using the grants in the correct order so that we don't lose out on those. We are still forecasting to carry forward some of that capital budget into next financial year. On our commercial investments work, we are forecasting a small shortfall in income for that, predominantly driven by our commercial properties down in Fareham. The two office blocks down there, the refurbishment work of those has started. So as well as updating all the M&E infrastructure, Councillor Lara Davenport-Ray will be very pleased to hear we're improving the energy efficiency of the buildings as part of that work. And that therefore will make them far more appealing to future tenants. We are also reconfiguring the buildings. So previous tenants, the requirements were to have huge office environments. That is no longer the demand for rental properties down there. So we're dividing each of the properties now into 3 individual suites. So that will give us a bit more spread of risk across future tenants. We shouldn't be dependent fully on one tenant as we were previously, but it should make them more marketable and more desirable. And finally, so I've lost my way in my script. We hope to have those buildings ready by the new year, so work is progressing at pace on those. And finally, Appendix 4 of the report covers the Treasury prudential indicators, and there's a little bit more detail in there as well.
So there's a few questions and comments that came from overview and scrutiny. A few of these were just around clarifications around wording, which were relevant to individual people's understanding of what was in front of them. A couple of questions that are worth covering off. There was a question about green bins and why we were showing a dip in income, and this was down to the timing of the second bin charge and the introduction of the garden waste subscription service. There was a question around, which Karen's already covered off, around confidence in the timescales of achieving the Market Towns programme. There were a couple of questions around cash interest forecast and then just showing the outstanding amounts of our Public Work Loans Board loans and the maturity dates of those. That has been in previous reports and sort of it appears in one round and then is removed for the next. So it's just for clarification or clarity of understanding. We think actually it would probably be better just to keep some of these reference numbers in for people such that they have it at every single meeting available in front of them. There was a further question about Fareham, which Karen's also just covered off. And again, overview scrutiny were happy with the improved information going into the reports and in line with the comments that was made about Councillor Ferguson's new round of reports. That's improvement in transparency generally across everything that we're doing.
Thank you very much. Full reports and very helpful explanations. These are for us to consider and comment. Are there any comments or questions at this stage? Councillor Davenport-Ray?
Yes, Karen, I know the facilities team falls under you, so I'm hoping that you might be able to pass on how happy we are to see some of the improvements that we see that I mentioned before in carbon savings reflected here in the finances. In section 3.1, you talk about electricity and gas savings amounting to £178,000 underspend. Those things are so closely linked, and I think they're doing excellent work in that arena.
Thank you. Duly noted. Councillor Hassel.
Thank you, Chair. Just like to also add my appreciation of the work that's been done by the Facilities Department. Councillor Davenport-Ray and myself met with them, and they're making some very good progress in terms of reducing gas and electricity, but lots of other initiatives which I think you'll hear about down the line. I just wanted to know what around commercial estates rental income. I noted that we've taken one site and we've divided it up into 3 sections, which is a great way of mitigating the risk. I know that there are other vacant properties. I wonder if you could provide an update on when we're likely to see new tenants in. Is there any estimate of that? When works are completed, etc.
So when you, so just clarity, when you say new tenants coming in, are you talking about the Fareham properties or are you talking about other more local properties?
Yeah, I guess, sorry. Fareham would be the first one in terms of when's the work likely to finish. So therefore, when are we likely to see new tenants able to come in? And then more locally, it's the Rowley Centre in St Neots, which has been empty for some time now.
So Fareham, as I said, the works are due to be completed around Christmas time. We are hoping to get tenants in there as soon as possible. And so there has already been some initial interest from parties down in Fareham who are looking to move in, very soon in the new year, hence our keenness to get the works completed by Christmas. There isn't anything signed yet. It's just initial interest, but we're working with land agents down there already to market the properties as quickly as we can. And when the building is in a safe condition to show potential tenants around, they will be doing so. Talking specifically about the Rowley Centre, there are 2 properties empty there at the moment, the former Frankie and Benny's restaurant and the former Prezzo restaurant. Frankie and Benny's restaurant, we've had some interest over the past few months, but unfortunately that hasn't ended up with a tenant moving in, so we continue to market that. The Prezzo restaurant, where they are in the process of surrendering the lease on that. So once that happens, we can then take back possession of that, and we can tidy up the whole area. And again, we have local agents who are marketing that. And there is an opportunity for greater interest because there are fewer existing restaurants there. So we might attract in a restaurant that previously wasn't interested or a different activity. But yes, we are working with local agents on that.
Thank you. Councillor Hassel?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the update. Excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Pitt?
Thank you. Absolutely really helpful to separate out the income and expenditure in separate lines. That really makes it much easier to digest this report. Also, just want to say, I was not just Councillor Davenport Ray that's delighted about the improvements to the buildings in Fareham. I think that across the Cabinet and the Council, we're really delighted that the direction of travel is exactly where we want that to be. Councillor Hassel's picked up some questions around the units in St Neots, so thanks for raising those. Those are my points, so thank you very much.
Thank you. And if I can, from the chair, I am aware that it's been a subject of discussion on Facebook, so I'm looking forward to that being surrendered because I know that there's an angst around how it looks at the moment. So that will be very welcome, I'm sure, to residents in St Neots. And I too look forward to seeing Fareham reoccupied in the new year. Any other comments or questions? Because if not, this is to report to receive the report and to consider, which I think we've done. Can I thank you very much? I would also agree, a bit like the comments on the corporate performance report, the clarity that we're getting and the transparency is really, really appreciated. It enables us to really get underneath the finances. It enables all councillors to be able to really become very familiar with how our finances are working at any given point in time, and that's extremely welcome. So thank you very much for all the efforts to equip us with the information that we need to make our decisions. Thank you. In which case then, Council, that takes us, sorry, not Council, Cabinet, that takes us on to the last item for this evening, which is the Hinchingbrook Country Park. And we are to receive the minutes of the Hinchingbrook Country Park joint group that were held on the 21st of July. Normally, Councillor Taylor would report back on this, but she's absent this evening. I don't believe that we've got any particular issues, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments if there are any. Councillor Davenport Ray.
I just wanted to highlight 2 items here of note. The first being that the cafe in the first quarter has an increased income of £20,000. And not only is this fantastic news for the site as it is now, but I think it really bodes well for the plans that we have the future on that site and how much interest there is there, not just in visiting, but in spending money as well. Also, the section on satellite sites. So the rangers from this site also visit Spring Common in Huntingdon, and so there's good news here about the number of bee orchids there. But Spring Common has also been the site of one of our green skills projects. We've had job seekers learning how to build wildlife habitats in Spring Common, and recently they uncovered a pond which had long been forgotten. We didn't know it was still there. So there are a lot of links coming together there, people learning green skills, managing our own wildlife habitats, and sharing it with an urban population who's now able to visit it. So a lot of successes, not just on the site at Hinchinbrook, but in the future and the satellite sites as well.
Absolutely. And I think all of those things should not go unnoted in terms of the progress that's being made. And there's quite a lot of innovative stuff. So for those of you who do follow the Facebook posts, now is the time to book up for Santa Paws. So you can take your dog to visit Santa. But these things are innovative and it was well received last year. So if you have a canine friend, now's your time to book. Advert over, but it all contributes to really getting people to celebrate and use our spaces. So thank you. Unless there are any other then comments or questions or any other adverts that we ought to be making at this stage, I think that brings us to the end of the evening. I should have started this evening by welcoming our new chief exec, but I'm going to close the meeting by welcoming our new chief exec and saying this is the end of week 1 and a bit. So it's lovely to have you here, and I'm looking forward to joining us at full council and enjoying that part of our process too.
Thank you very much. And I have to say, I've said to everyone I've met has been just so very welcoming and helpful. And it's really, really helped the way I feel I've landed. And I feel like I've been at ages now, actually, not just a week and 2 days. So thank you very much, everybody. And thank you.
Hence why I forgot to welcome you at the beginning, because it does feel like you've been here longer than just a week and 2 days. Cabinet, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you for anybody who's been able to join us online this evening, and we will reconvene in a month or so's time. Thank you. Good night.